Okay, I think we wanted to record the session, so we're going to get it recorded now. So now, in the next phase, what I'll do is I'll take you through a simple application. What is the experience if you're coming from, say, from the apps.com. So I hope you can see my screen. That's good. Can you see my screen? Okay, so if you want to sign up for Workato, you can go to workato.com and sign up from there. And that'll give you a generic account without any applications as part of it. You could also get to us from the apps.com marketplace or the Salesforce App Exchange marketplace, or we are in various other marketplaces. So you could get us from there. And then if you come to apps.com, you will see if you search for Workato, you'll see the applications which are already there as part of the offering. And if you click on one of these, you will be taken into Workato account. If you have an account already, it is going to just put the application in your account. If you don't have an account, it'll create an account on the fly, and it'll create something like this. What you're seeing here is the app that you picked, and it comes in under your apps tab. So if you look inside the apps tab, this is the screen. So as part of the initial install process, what it is going to do is going to ask for your credentials to connect you to both Salesforce and QuickBooks, because those are the two applications this is using. And once you have given the connections, it'll bring you to this screen, and this shows a set of curated recipes. So our integrations are called recipes. So this is a set of curated recipes which Workato has built and made available for our customers. So from here, you can just come in and start the process, or you can look at the logic. You can say, okay, what is this thing doing? You can say this integration moves closed won opportunities in Salesforce to 0. It'll create, this is a QuickBooks one, I think the description is up there. So here, I think, Salesforce account to QuickBooks, search for corresponding customers in QuickBooks. If customer already exists, the Salesforce is the customer master, etc. And then, once you decide that this is what you want to do, then you can go and start the application. So it is important, when you're doing that, it is important to pay attention to these parameters, because they are going to affect how your recipe is going to run. So in this case, the start date is saying that pick up all records that were created from that date. So if I put a date of, say, January 1st, it is going to pick up everything from January and move them over to the other side. And this other field is going to select, is specifying who's the master for this data, who's the master for contacts. Is it Salesforce? Is it QuickBooks? Is it both? And so it's good to kind of think about it before you turn this on. I always like to measure twice and then cut once, because once you make this go, once you turn this on, if it moves the wrong data in, backtracking is not very easy. So it's always good to kind of plan out what you're planning to do and then start them. So although it is very tempting to come here and just get them started, take a minute. Actually, the best thing to do at this point is to call up Workato and talk to one of our, you can chat here from this area. You can call up one of our guys, or you can schedule a session with us. It's a free session, and we can talk to you about what your needs are, and then guide you in the right set of recipes that you should be using, because we supply 6 or 7 recipes. In some cases we give 13 recipes, but all of them may not apply to you. So I think it's good to kind of talk to one of our guys to say what applies to you and what doesn't. So let's say if you go to any of these things, so this is one view of the recipes, the integrations that you're running. The other thing I wanted to point out is, over here, you see all of these resources. They are pretty good videos and documents and resource center where you can go in and take a look at do some learning on what this is about, what is the solution about, how to get started and all that. It's good homework to do. So this is one view of the product. So, and you can buy from here. But the other view of the product, if you go, is the complete view, which it may have your recipes, it may have your recipes that came from this application, and it can have your own recipes, the custom recipes that you have built. So, for example, there are two of them running here. Copy of sync new QuickBooks items to Salesforce product. So you see that they're running under active, and then there are the inactive recipes and the apps, right? So I can click into any of these, and I can see what's going on. And if I want to edit it, I'll have to stop it, right? So inside the recipe, you'll see the description for the recipe. Search for corresponding product in Salesforce. If the product exists, then and QuickBooks is the master, it updates the existing product. If product does not exist, it creates the product. So here you see the version number for the recipe, how long back was it updated, where was it copied from, and so on. And then this is the basic, this is the meat of the recipe. So every recipe, it has a trigger. And inside the trigger, you're saying, what are you looking for? So here it is looking for QuickBooks, new items, and you're saying, how far back do I go to pick it up? You're saying, I'll pick it up from the start date. And if you remember, we picked up the start date from the parameter here that I set. That one was called start date. So, and then if you want to, you can put trigger conditions here that will, throw out products that you don't need. So then what it does, it searches for the product in Salesforce. So it goes to Salesforce and it says search object product, and it passes it the name of the product. And after that, it checks to see if the product exists. If the product does not exist, then it creates the object in Salesforce. And then it creates the price book entry. In Salesforce, you have the prices are kept in a different structure. So you cannot, the prices are not kept along with the product. So you have to go to the other object, which is the price book entry. And what I'm doing is I'm searching for the price books. There is something called a standard price book entry. I'm picking that up, and then I'm using that. See if I'm using the product ID from the product I created. I'm using the price book ID from the price book I just fetched. See if you see here, it'll just light up. You see this price book ID, and here it lights up. And then I create the new price book entry for it. If it is already present, and if the master for products is QuickBooks, then I will update the product in Salesforce. So it's the same kind of thing that I do here, but now instead of doing a create, I'm doing an update here, right? And I do the same thing for the price. If the price book entry already exists, I will check for it. If the price book entry exists, then I will not do it. If it, I will update it. If it doesn't exist, I'll create it. So that's a simple recipe that you can build. Is quite easy to build. And if there are errors, or if you want to just check what happened here, you can see here, you can go here and say what data came in. So this is the trigger data. So this is the trigger data that came in, Gen Watt diesel 2000 kilowatt. And the name was GC1040. And then I go to Salesforce and I'm looking up for GC1040. And I looked to see if it exists, and it found it. And that's the reason, if you remember, we checked to see if it was there or not, and it found it and it stopped because, in this case, the Salesforce is the master. So that's a simple recipe. Now, let's look at what, do you want to talk about ItDuzzit at this point? Like comparison between ItDuzzit and Workato?
Sure, I can do that. Also, I think it'd be a good idea to get a sense of sort of the folks on the webinar.
I'll do that. Yeah.
So we just want to do a quick poll to get a sense of, so that it helps us be more precise with the content, whether we should go get more technical, talk more about solutions. So, for example, I think the two things we'd love to know is sort of, how technical you are, because we can also talk about our SDK, and also how many of you are interested in learning more about how our integrations with QuickBase works. So I think if So I just posted a question. I mean, do you want us to cover QuickBase? If you do, we'll sort of jump into QuickBase before we sort of talk about the comparisons.
Is everyone mute?
Yes, it typically is. Yeah. So why don't we sort of cover QuickBase?
Let's do a little bit of QuickBase. So did we send this question already?
Do you want to send it?
I think folks can respond on chat. So if you're sort of, if you're technical, you want to hear us talk about more of the technical details, just holler at us in the chat window, and we'll make sure to cover the more technical topics as well.
Okay. Let's go back to the window. No. Okay. I need this. So let's go back to recipes. So back to Workato. When you're in Workato, you can see a lot of the information that I talked about over here. What is a trigger? What are actions? Why we are different? For example, how quick you can, the proof is in the pudding. You can just try to log in and see how quickly you can sign up. We are certified by SOC 2. So, people who are HR people and financial people healthcare people who use us, they have forced us to get that certification, and we are happy that we did. And complex integrations can be made easy. Of course, we'll go into that. There are hundreds of apps you can use, and there are other stuff here. So let's go back into QuickBase. So the way you look at recipes, so suppose you're doing a create recipe, you'll just do a create recipe here. But before you do create recipe, maybe you can try to find out, what recipes exist. So for example, if I'm doing a Salesforce and QuickBooks, and I'm interested in doing invoice, I can do that. I think I should spell better. So all of these things come up, and you can see many of these recipes there. If you hover over it, it'll show you the description of the recipes. And if you do use this, it is going to make a copy for you, and you can look at it see if it is perfect for you. If it is not, you can customize it. And if you want to create recipes, you can always go here, because so overall, I think if you look at just the browse apps, you can see all of these applications, but you don't have to go through that. You can just key it in here. So let's say that you want to create a recipe. You didn't find something. Let's say you want to do a QuickBase recipe. So let's say that you want to do something. So I think I always say that just write it down what you want to do, and then go ahead and do it. So here you can say QuickBase is what I'll be triggered by. So anytime a new record comes into QuickBase, I'll pick it up. And here I can choose, in my QuickBase, I have a bunch of tables that I've created. And one is a custom table that I created, which is called featured recipes. So you can go here, and you can pick up featured recipes. And then, similar to the previous case, you can say, how far back do you want to go? You can go to 12. And then, you can put the trigger condition. And then once you have defined the trigger, you can create the actions. So here we can just say, we don't want to do anything, or maybe we just do a search in QuickBase. Search record, and we want to search it in featured recipes, and then connection is good, and then let's say I give it a name. You can put in detailed descriptions here about. Oh, it's showing the other screen.
It's frozen, I think.
Sorry, guys. Let me. So you didn't. When did I stop? Did you? I don't know if people are responding to it or not.
I think you can just start from trigger.
Yeah. Let me go back to the create recipes page. So I come here and do a create recipe. And the first thing you do is select what is it that you're going to be interested in. So I'm going to select QuickBase, and I'm going to say that I'm going to pick a new record. And I have I have this featured recipe table that I've created in QuickBase. So I'm going to use that. And I'm going to pick a date. And I can put trigger conditions here, but I'm not going to do for now. Then I select, what do I want to do here? You could do any of the possible things. Like you could say, move it to Salesforce or move it to, a Google Sheet, whatever, So let's say that we want to we want to search for it in QuickBase. So, and I want to do a search record. I want to search it in featured recipes. And then I make sure the connections are good, and I give it a name. QuickBase. Right, and then I finish. So once I go back, then let's see. I think I didn't give the. Let me fill in the values that are needed. Let me give the app token. I think it requires the app token. So, it requires the app token. So this app token, you can get it from inside. Now, if I refresh this, it should come in. Okay. So here I want to search by the name, and okay, so SD, I didn't have to do another save. Refresh schema. So ID. Why is this not coming up? Some problem here. App token. I think I forgot the app token here also. Sorry, because I think I've set up the thing separately. So we should give the app tokens there. Let me refresh. Okay. Now if I go, okay, so now it shows up after the app tokens. So now I want to check for the name, and I can save it and run this recipe. I can either test it or run it. Let me just run it. And so here we will see all the jobs show up. And so if you select one of these guys, so you'll see what record came in. So once once you go in, you can see what the input was and then what the output was. And here you see the details of the record that came in. So here's the ID that it had, is the name, the other fields which are there, and you can see the search. And this was the input I gave to the search. And here's the output that I received from the search. And of course, it found it, and there are two of them it found, right? So this is how we'll do a search. And similar to this, what you could do is go back. So I can stop the recipe. So at this point, there are various possibilities that are that you can do to make the recipe much more useful. So for example, we could do a conditional step. So you can say, if I found something, so I'll look for, let's say, record ID. If there's a record ID is present. So here's a conditional formatting and a conditional processing that we are doing. So I said if record ID is present, which means I found something, then here we see I can do actually I can do just a plain create or something, right? Sorry, let's into Salesforce I want to store somewhere. So I could let's say I want to do a create campaign, for example, and I can map the fields in. The other thing I could do here is I could have a repeat action, which is a for loop. So for example, we saw that when we did the search, it returned a list of records. This pancake stack, it shows that it's a list of records. So I can just say that I want to do processing based on this, and then for each record, now I can do something. We know the same thing that we did before. We could do something like that, like create campaign, and now the campaign name is coming from this name in the for each loop. So this for each loop is actually everything I found in the search record. It is going through each record and presenting it to me one by one. So I'm saying that from the first line, take the name and map it, and so on. And then I can fill that whole thing out. And so why would you do one versus the other? So if there's if you expect a list, you will do a processing like this. If you don't expect a list, you will do a processing like this, where you're doing just step 3. So, and you can also move this step to the higher level step, and it'll be indented under the if condition, that if I found something, then you create some, you go through, process each record at a time, and then process the lines and move them into Salesforce. So it can be any of the apps that you connect to. It could have been a Salesforce app, it could have been a Google Sheet app, etc. And once you have done it, of course, we suggest that you test it first, and then you can do the start of the recipe, which once you start, it is going to keep running in the background, and anytime new records show up, is going to process it. So I hope that gives a high level overview of what it is possible to do. And if you have any questions, if you start asking the questions, then we can answer those questions or take you into different areas that you're interested in.
Hi everyone. My name is Gautam Vishwanathan, and I'm responsible for products at Workato. Amlan, thank you. So I hope that sort of gave you a good sense of how our product works, and we saw it does it. It is a really great product, and there's a lot of customers that are using it. And over the last few days, we got a ton of inbound sort of queries about can I do this in Workato? Or does Workato support this and so on. So what I'll try to do is I'll sort of talk at a high level about some of those, and also I really sort of encourage you to take advantage of this free implementation session that we are sort of offering to folks that are moving over from ItDuzzit. I mean, so this is a great opportunity to talk to technical folks. You can sort of explain what you're doing with ItDuzzit today, and our sort of technical folks can give you a sense of how best to sort of take that and and make that work on Workato. Of course, if you're sort of if Workato is also meant to be very easy to use. So if you're up for it, you can directly go ahead and sort of build yourself some recipes and see how that goes. Um, just from a high level, I mean, it does it has kind of like two products in one, right? I mean, one is sort of the cloud to cloud integration. The idea is that you sort of do those integrations really quickly, and then if you want to do more, especially more custom stuff, getting a more technical with sort of building connectors and so on, you sort of use the advanced the it does it editor. The way to think about Workato is we are more like the cloud to cloud, but you can do a lot of things in the cloud to cloud. So the cloud to cloud is not restricted to A to B. You have the ability to do data transformations. You have the ability to describe logic. You can do lookups. So we try to sort of bring the power and capability into sort of to use sort of the it does it terminology in the cloud to cloud integration mode. Um, so I'll sort of go in a little bit more sort of detail. So many of you use sort of more complex if then else logic. That is something that the Workato editor supports, and you saw Amlan sort of walking through. Lists, walking through, or doing conditionals and so on. So we made that very easy to do. And if you look at the recipe itself, the recipe is it feels very sort of English like. You describe the logic and then sort of and then you sort of get into configuring what sort of is behind each step. Um, and then one of the things that I've had several calls with folks that are using it does it, and one of the things that came up quite often is there's a lot of data mapping happening, text manipulation, data manipulation, math functions and date functions and so on. And with Workato, there's two ways to do that. I mean, there's a basic, mode where you can simply drag and drop fields from what we call as the data tree. I hope you're sort of all are able to see the continue to be able to see the screens, but so here is sort of the recipe, and this is sort of what we call the data tree, what you see on the right side. So you can very easily use this. You can sort of drag and drop from here. But if you want to do more, essentially, especially the if you want to sort of do date functions and so on, we have a pretty powerful formula mode where you can see it has a ton of different formulas that are sort of built into the product that you can do. So it's very similar to in how you would do some of these things in it does it. You can do the same thing here but more visually. So that's an area that we got a ton of questions, and the other is Workato. I mean, we support over 150 connectors today, but there are a lot more applications, and we have a very aggressive roadmap for connectors, but still you may run into a situation where there's a connector that you need that we don't support today. And sort of the way to sort of address that is um, we have a SDK that is available to anyone. So if you sort of, the default account doesn't have it, but if you want to just send us a note or give us a call, and we'll enable your account to have the SDK. And in the SDK, this particular account doesn't have it. The idea is, if you want to build sort of a connector to an app that we don't support, you go into the SDK. Of course, the SDK is a bit technical. I mean, having done some development helps. So, so you go into the SDK, and then essentially, you construct the appropriate REST endpoints and so on, and then it does the rest. So the other thing also is I noticed that in a lot of the ItDuzzit use cases, people are making calls to just to sort of basically making basic REST calls. I mean, they don't want to build a full connector, but they just want to make a call, get some additional data, and continue processing. To do that, you would do the same thing. You would go into the SDK, you would create a little action or a trigger, and then that is immediately available inside the recipe editor. So here is sort of, this is sort of the SDK, and there is an example here that I'm going to go into. So this one is a bit more involved, because as you can tell, it has a ton of actions and triggers. So this one has, this is a pretty complete connector that has been built. It's got 5 actions. It's got a couple of triggers. You are welcome to sort of build an entire connector, but also if you want to just build a simple action, you would use the same mechanism. It's just that in that case, what you would do would be substantially simpler. I don't know sort of how much of you on the sort of on the webinar are technical, but as you can see, I mean, this definitely is more developer oriented. So if you're trying to build an action, you're essentially sort of so here is an action, right? This action is getting user information. And there's a simple way to look at it, and I'll just show you that view of it. So essentially, this particular action, for every action that you do, you have to describe what does the input look like. Then you have to describe what the output looks like, and then you have to describe how to actually get at the data, which is basically inside the execute method. And if you notice here, is essentially a very a URL constructed for that particular REST action. So it looks a bit more complicated than it is, but sort of, once you sort of get the hang of it, in many instances, it is just a matter of coming up with the right URL and describing the input and the output. So in this case, this is a URL, and this URL you'd essentially get, in this particular case, is this product hunt. If you go to the product hunt API doc, they'll basically tell you, how to construct the URL, and then you put that in here. And then the input that particular action takes is sort of, you construct that here. So this particular thing just takes one input, the username, and then what data you expect, you define it here. And so here are sort of like the data that comes back. These are the different fields it has. So it's pretty simple. I mean, like, for example, many folks have built something in half an hour to 1 hour. They're somewhat technical, and if you sort of the best way I would say to get started is, we have several examples. One example ships with a product. Just cut and paste and get started. And also, again, if you need any help, reach out to us. Then the other thing sort of we learned is, there's a lot of folks that use ItDuzzit. They do schedule a transaction. So it's based on a timer schedule, it does a set of actions, and we support that. We call that the clock. So if you use the clock activity, you use that as a trigger, it basically gives you several options. It says, do something every X minutes, do something on a specific date and time. So it's got a variety of different options, and you should be able to sort of, if you're using this scheduled integrations and ItDuzzit, you should be able to do that with Workato as well. Then we sort of got questions around what does your where does all this stuff run? Is my data secure? All sort of natural things. It's your business data. You want to make sure that it is well protected. So this is something that we take very seriously. We work with very large companies, and all of our Workato runs on Salesforce, Heroku, and AWS. We are SOC 2 audited, and we have like a real detailed set of sort of procedures that we follow that we actually make available as part of our security policy. So please, if you have questions, take a look at that. But everything that we do is all data in motion is encrypted. We do at a minimum 128 bit encryption for HTTPS and so on. Again, any questions around that, feel free to let us know. Then the other cool thing that I think, if sort of with Workato, and I like with ItDuzzit, is every single sort of job or transaction that actually gets executed is made is sort of shown as part of the job history. So you can sort of look at jobs that are created today. You can go back in time and look jobs that are created many months ago. And if there are issues, for example, if there's a job that had failed, you can very simply go in, fix things, and rerun it. So when you rerun it, we will actually run the same original data, but through the new fixed version of the recipe. So this way, if you have issues, you can very easily fix them. And you can do that not just for new jobs that you're about to process, but also for jobs that have been processed and failed. So it's a really simple way, without having to go back to your source system, fixing things there and redoing things. You can actually simply do that from Workato itself. I just sort of want to do a quick time check and see if you folks have any questions. I mean, we sort of there's a lot of questions around QuickBase today and in the past couple of days. We sort of have this a basic version of the QuickBase connector now. I mean, we support a couple of triggers and a few actions, and this is a sort of an area of intense focus for us. So over the next several days and the next week and so on, you're going to see a ton of actions and triggers that we are adding to in support of QuickBase. And also, if you sort of don't see anything that you're using today, just let us know, and we'll take a look at it and get back to you. Any other questions, Zan? Pricing. Okay. Amlan, do you want to talk about pricing?
So pricing is, if you just go to the page, the pricing page is already there, the Workato page. Yeah. So the basic pricing, I think you can always sign up for a community edition in the beginning to just get to try out the product. And then if you have a fewer number of employees and your transaction limits are lower, if here's a 5,000 transaction limit if per month, if your transaction limits are below 5,000, you can go for the premium plan. And then if you
and also this 5,000 transaction, I mean, each transaction
is a job. So it doesn't, so if you look at the previous thing that I was showing you, if something happens do 5 different things inside the recipe, it doesn't matter how many calls you're making. Everything is one single job. So we count transaction as a job.
So one recipe, one event is one job.
One recipe, one event is a job, right? And the next level up is, most of our customers actually are using this professional edition, which is the $4.99 per month. And again, this is for the enterprise, it's not per user. So an enterprise uses a $499 per month plan. And that one takes the transaction limit up to 50,000, which is big enough for most of the people. And then there are some customers who are at the enterprise level, and those guys, it's a custom pricing. So depending, if you think you will be doing more than 50,000 per month, then talk to us and we can come up with a plan for you. Now, the other thing is that for each of these plans, we give you a onboarding free, an onboarding session, and we help you decide what you should be doing. We help you find out if your data is clean or not, and if you need any customizations to standard recipes, or we also find out if your requirement is so different that you don't have any custom recipes at all. You don't have any custom recipes available at all for your use, then we have to create something for you. So at that point, you can create it yourself, or you can ask us to create it, or you can ask a consultant who's, we have a large ecosystem of consultants and partners who build for their customers. So we can suggest some people to you, or you can call us and we can do it. And then we also have a managed services plan, where if you want to do more work, we can always help you out with very customized handholding for getting your system up and running. And typically, within a week, we'll be able to get you up and running. So I see John has a question. So John, we're going to unmute you. Why don't you ask your question?
I had a couple of questions. I'm looking at the pricing plan, and the professional one references tier 2 apps. What is that?
So tier 2 apps.
Yeah, I think if you go down, I think it should show the tier 2 apps. There's a listing of tier 2 apps somewhere. I'll just.
So basically, I mean, there are certain apps that are only available if you're on a higher tier. So, for example, if you go into the professional edition, that's when you get access to Workato, Salesforce Enterprise, NetSuite, and so on. So
I see. So certain apps are limited to those levels. Okay.
That is correct. Yeah. So if you
my other question was kind of a technical one. When you were doing the demo, and I'm sorry I didn't get everyone's name, but one thing that I do in ItDuzzit is I will build up the value for a field over the course of the recipe, and it might be like a sort of a long text field or some sort of a message that I'm going to dump somewhere along the way. So what ItDuzzit has is there are kind of abstract fields that you can create as inputs or outputs, and then write to those and push values onto them, or manipulate them in other ways. Is there something equivalent to that?
So we don't support that today, essentially the ability to have mutable fields, but it is something that sort of we are working on, essentially in support of sort of folks that have been using ItDuzzit. So now, if you want to do that, I mean, you have to maintain state outside of Workato. So that's a lot of our customers, they may use like a Google Sheets and so on to store that information. But we are sort of adding support for variables, right? "Quote unquote" variables.
Sure.
Sort of that will be available through all steps of the recipe. That is mutable.
Do you have any feel for a timeline on that feature?
We sort of definitely end of March.
Okay. And I guess the last thing off the top of my head is your pricing is quite a bit more than ItDuzzit's. Um, how do you see? I mean, even for just the premium level, how do you see, your offering differentiated from what they were offering?
So your question is how do we differentiate our premium plan against the ItDuzzit's plans?
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of our pricing, I mean, our pricing is really reflects sort of, what we see from sort of, our customer base, this is the pricing that we've had before sort of it does it sort of um, the it does it relationship and one of the things that sort of Workato is very focused on is sort of basically, we sort of our focus is, even though a lot of our customers, we have customers all over the spectrum, and many of them are small businesses and so on, we still bring enterprise grade capability to sort of to smaller customers as well. So in terms of reliability, in terms of scalability, like sort of we didn't talk about certain things around parallel processing, in terms of duplicate detection. There's a lot of things that are essentially built into the platform. So when you're actually creating a recipe, you're not thinking about how to sort of avoid all, certain types of exception cases. Um, so that has always been our focus. And then also the other thing is in terms of ease of use. I mean, we've sort of really spent a lot of time around ease of use, so that folks that are not very technical can still use the product and get a lot of value for it.
Okay. One other question. I don't mean to hog the mic, but one thing that I can do with ItDuzzit is expose one of my recipes as an API endpoint, that can be accessed by another web service. Is that possible?
That is not possible right now.
Okay. And is that something that's on your roadmap, or no?
It is something on our roadmap, but sort of not like not in the next several weeks. It's definitely come up a few times. It's sort of, I would say, more in our next couple of quarters type roadmap.
So, John, just wanted to understand under what circumstance were you using that? What's the scenario?
Sure. I use a lead generation service that sends me new leads for my business as HTTP posts. And so it's basically just, ultimately I'm creating records in QuickBase with those values for new customer prospects.
Mm-hmm.
But before I create those records, I'm doing a bunch of other things in an ItDuzzit recipe,
Mm-hmm.
based on the values that I get.
Mm-hmm. So why don't you do it in the same recipe?
Why don't I do what?
Meaning you could do all the work that you have to do before you store it in QuickBase in the same
Right.
recipe. Because our recipe, within the recipe, there's no limitation to how many number of apps you can
Oh,
call.
sure. Yeah, the problem is just the input. Right now I'm getting the inputs and it does it via an HTTP post that the lead generation service sends to me. It's not a polling function. And so I would need, to get that.
Jonathan, I think we can help you with that. Sort of one of the things that is coming up is a inbound webhook trigger, and
Yeah.
so instead of having to actually make it, you would basically you can construct and post to a specific URL, and that would trigger the recipe. So we can actually sort of I'm happy to talk offline about how that could solve your use case.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
Uh,
And then, sorry, this is Zen. So previously we saw a hand. Was it Blake? Did you have a question? I'm gonna unmute you.
I had just wanted to piggyback on what John was just saying regarding accessing through either a post or an API. I have a lot of instances, and ItDuzzit where I need to trigger a recipe or a ItDuzzit on demand. So a client in QuickBase clicks a button and it immediately runs a specified ItDuzzit or set of ItDuzzits to do whatever the action is. So, having the ability to access something either via a URL or directly through an API call would be extremely valuable.
Yeah. I mean, I think that sort of Blake. I mean, it's the same mechanism that sort of I was briefly talking about in response to Jonathan's question should address your use case as well. Actually, if we know how to sort of get in touch with Blake and Jonathan, happy to sort of walk you through, how it would work.
Okay.
Do you have our contact information?
I have several people's contact info.
Okay.
I don't know that I have anyone specifically on the call.
You can send it to Amlan, AMLAN, at workato.com.
Okay.
I'm putting it in the chat window. Anyone else? Any other questions? Good. Thank you very much for attending this session, and hopefully it was useful. We'd like to get your feedback on the content. Was it useful? Was it not useful? And some things we didn't cover, so that when we do the next one, we can fix for all of those problems.
I do apologize. I have one quick question. What is the best way for us to provide feedback specific to QuickBase?
If you go to support@workato.com, just send it. You can send an email to that, support@workato.com, or if you're inside Workato, you can see. Do you have an account in Workato already?
Yes, I do.
So if you're logged in, you can, if you can go to the help, you can log a ticket there. You can do a check ticket, create support ticket. You can.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was the best way to provide feedback regarding the QuickBase connector.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. And then, the other thing is, you can open a chat session and talk to someone and give them that information.
Okay.
Hey, Blake, this is Jonathan. If you're a fellow, refugee from ItDuzzit, it might be useful for the two of us to, to share notes if you're headed towards Workato. I'm happy to share my information.
Absolutely. Jonathan, if you would, or someone on the call, if you can provide my contact info to Jonathan, that would be great. Amlan, I just sent you an email with all of my contact info.
Okay, I'll contact you, Jonathan. And Jonathan, I'm hoping that your contact information is also with us. When you
it is. Amlan, I've got yours, so I'll write up an email and look forward to talking more with you.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot again. And yeah, if you have any other questions, you can write to me directly. If you don't have to, support is one channel, but you can also write to me. That's good enough. Thank you again, and look forward to working with you. It's in the middle.